What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another video. So today I wanted to just share an experience or an epiphany that I had while I was out taking photos of birds. Typically I have shot with my 800 millimeter lens. This is the my to-go lens for everything pretty much when it comes to small birds, because of that reach. It gives me that flexibility, or not flexibility, but that ability, and get those good shots of those tiny little birds. Sometimes they're about this big, they're really tiny, about maybe 2 to 3 inches, and with this, yeah, you can get some pretty nice shots. But then, I also been hearing a lot of good things about this lens here. This is the 200 to 800 millimeter lens by Canon, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna pull the trigger. I'm gonna buy it because it's my hobby and it keeps me sane. So sure, I'll drop $2,000 on this lens. What the heck. They're not cheap here in Norway, by the way. They're actually $3,000 here in Norway. So yeah, but in the US it's about $2,000. Anyway, I was pretty sad that it did not include Arca Swiss mount on the foot, so you have to buy your own. And the second hole here, the first hole fits perfectly fine for regular tripods, or like the regular tripod holes fits on this here. But this one is actually, this hole on the foot itself, this hole is actually bigger, so you're gonna need kind of like a adapter thing to go in there to be able to screw both of these screws into place. I don't know if that makes any sense, but what I'm trying to say is that both of these are not the same holes. They're not the same width. They're different. This one is bigger, it's wider. So yeah, but yeah. So what do I think about the lens? It is phenomenal. The lens is great. I think it's pretty darn sharp, very flexible to go from 200 to 800. That is always a nice thing, because I often find myself wanting to take photos of birds in flight, and since I'm at 800 millimeters with my prime lens, it's almost impossible finding that bird in the sky. But if I'm with my 200 to 800, I can zoom out to say 200 millimeters, find the bird, and quickly zoom in and take the shots. So that's a pretty good advantage, from the 200 to the 800. But one thing I did notice, I was just curious, and I was out taking photos with both of them, and I have heard on the internet that the 200 to 800, the 800 millimeter, once you reach 800 millimeters, it's not quite 800 millimeters. It's like a little bit shorter, like maybe 780, around there. Versus the prime. The prime is actually closer to 800 millimeters than the 200 to 800, or whatever other zoom lenses there are out there. And so I put that to a test, and yeah, it's the prime is has a little bit extra reach, but it's not much. It's really not. It's insignificant, really. I mean, you won't notice out there in the field. However, there is one thing that I did notice, and now, mind you, this is me pixel peeping. Okay, this you will not notice. I'm pretty sure you will not notice. I'm positive you will not notice this out in the field if you're just taking photos, doing your thing. You will never notice this unless you go and compare the two and zoom in to the photo. Then you start seeing something funny there. Basically what it is that the 800 millimeter prime is a tad bit sharper. And when if IQ or image quality is your thing, and you're looking for those extra pixels, or that extra sharpness, let me just say that. If you're looking for that extra sharpness, the 800 prime takes the cake. And it is so for what I understand, I'm listening to other guys talk about this subject. It is a case that primes will always be sharper than zoom lenses, because of the nature of the beast. That's just the way it is. Or let me take it back. It's not always, but oftentimes the primes are sharper than zoom lenses. That's what I understand. From my experience, yes, that is the case. That is what I have concluded. Now, keep it in mind, again, this is pixel peeping, okay? So let's go and jump into the computer, and I'm going to show you some photos that I've taken with the 800 millimeter lens that, to me, they're good photos. There's nothing wrong with them. Maybe composition, because I'm still learning, of course. But you will see that the 800 millimeter lens at F11 never stopped me from getting good shots, as far as I know. Also, yeah, and these birds are about 5 meters away. Sometimes 8 meters away, and they're tiny. They're small birds. So yeah, let's jump into the computer, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, this photo that you see here is my wallpaper. This is actually taken with 200 to 800 millimeter lens, the Canon lens, that is. And I just briefly want to go through some of the photos that I've taken with the F11 800 millimeter lens. And these photos, I don't know about you guys, but to me, they seem okay, for an 800 millimeter lens at F11, under $1,000, or depending where you live, for this type of quality, I can't really complain. Really, there's nothing that I can say negative about this lens, for the price, of course, if you want to go that route. But you can clearly tell. Now, keep in mind, these are small birds. These are not your crow-sized birds or anything like that. These are tiny birds, usually between 3 to 4 inches big, 4 inches at most. A lot of these, not all. And look at the amount of detail. And I'm about 5 to 6 meters away. Some of these photos are actually longer distance. And this lens is still, this one here is about 8 meters away. And look at the amount of detail that I was able to capture here. You can see the little ridges, or little things around his eye, and the little small feathers here around the beak. I mean, this is just, and look at the bokeh. This is, the background is so, it's gone. There's no, nothing to complain about this photo here. I'm very happy, very satisfied with this. Here in Norway, we call it brunsisik. And I'm sorry, I don't know what the English name is for this bird. I think this is called in English a common chaffinch. Here we call it a pilfink. And again, look at the amount of detail, the sharpness of this lens, and the bokeh is just nothing to complain about. This one here is actually shot pretty far away. I was about 10 to 11 meters away. And this is a tiny bird, again, about 3 inches big. And I position myself here in the right place so I can get that, blurry background there, that bokeh. And I love how it's got his mouth open. It's just a nice, beautiful composition. I love how it's got this intimate shot. The bird is doing its little singing there. And I managed to capture that moment. In Norway, we call these lovsanger. I don't know what the English name is. Again, another common chaffinch or pilfink. And the amount of detail for me is great. And this is a red squirrel that we have here in Norway. We got pretty good eye contact there. And again, all these photos that you've seen, that you're looking at here, they're all shot with the 800 millimeter f11 lens. And a wagtail. And here in Norway, we call this linerla. And again, this is about 10 meters away, and look at the amount of detail. I mean, 8 to 10 meters away. It's quite a distance, and I had to, crop a little bit to get it right where I wanted it. But still, look at the amount of detail there. It's just incredible. And here's a robin, a red-throat robin, I think it's called in English. I'm not sure. And in Norway, we call this rostrupe. But look at the amount of detail. And again, this is about 5 meters away. Yeah, if I can recall correctly, from where I was sitting. Look at the amount of detail, the feathers, eye contact. It's just a beautiful photo, in my opinion, for my amateurish eyes. I think it's a beautiful photo. I have no complaints. And, the intimate moment where the bird is taking a little bath, I love that. And I got other photos of this guy here doing a spin and, you know, even upside down in the water, and he was just having fun. But this one here is just to keep, you know, the video a little bit short. But anyway, so yeah, it's just to show you guys what you can achieve with this lens. Now, here's where things got interesting. So I took several shots of the same spot using a tripod. Here, let me just get these photos lined up here. And actually, the way I want to have it is like this. And I want to show you guys something very interesting. Okay, so let's go about that dot there and then this dot here. Okay, so here we have the 200 to 800 millimeter lens. I set it to F11, 1/100 shutter speed, ISO manually set to 1000. Same for the 800 millimeter lens. And yeah, you can see the amount of detail that you're able to capture with the F11 800 millimeter lens, with the prime lens, versus the 200 to 800. And when I first took these photos, or this photo here, I thought, no, something is wrong, something is off here. There can't be that much difference between these two lenses. Come on now. So let me go to the corners here, kind of line it up with, match it up with the other lens. Let this clean up here a little bit. And again, same in the corners. The F11 lens is just keeping that sharpness all around the photo. And yeah, the 200 to 800, of course, it is sharp. It is a sharp lens. I have no complaints. And I'm taking this from pretty far away. I don't know, the distance here is about maybe, I don't know, 25 meters to a wall, you know, concrete wall with bricks. And you can tell the difference there. You know, with this, the prime lens is just so much sharper. So, and I thought, you know, no, there's got to be something here, that something is not right. It can't be that big of a difference. So I took another photo, and again, using the 200 to 800, comparing it to the F11 little brother, and again, same results. So I thought, what the heck? Why? I mean, yeah, I get it. This lens is still pretty sharp. You know, you have the convenience of 200 to 800. This is fixed. You know, 800 millimeters prime lens F11. Now this costs over twice what this lens costs here, and look at the amount of detail. I mean, what the heck? And I thought, okay, you know what? Maybe because it's not at f9, maybe because I'm turning up the f-stop to f11 to match the prime lens. Maybe that's where I'm messing up. Maybe that you know, if I set the lens to its native f-stop at 800 millimeters, it should give me some better results, right? Well, as you can see, it's a little bit sharper at f9, but not by much. And the F11 prime lens here is just killing it. And now this is something that I did notice out when I was taking photos, that the photos from the F11 800 just seem a tad bit sharper. As you saw there in those photos, the little birds. It's just something about it that you know, I picked up real quick. You know, when I was comparing photos, like, okay, you know, wow, I didn't see the difference. Now, if you only owned the 200 to 800 millimeter lens, and that's the only lens that you had, and you didn't have the F11 lens, I think I would be perfectly happy with the photos coming out of the 200 to 800 because it is a sharp lens. I have no complaints at all whatsoever. But if you have seen the sharpness of the 800 F11, yeah, you would, I think you would notice the difference in quality. Also, mind you, this is at ISO 640, you know, f9. So I even let the ISO drop a little bit so that give it just a little chance or better chance. And still the 800 F11 is just, yeah, the quality, the IQ is just, yeah, it just jumps out at you, or at least to me, how obvious this is. Like, where's this shot here? There we go. So I mean, when you look at that and you compare it to that here, kind of the same here, not too much, but yeah, this is sharper here in this area than the 200 to 800. The 800 millimeter f11 is just a sharper lens, and I think it's because it is a prime lens, so that is to be expected. My conclusion for my amateur self is that if image quality is what you're looking for, that's your most important thing, and you already have the 800 millimeter f11. If IQ is the most important thing for you, stick with the f11 800. It's just a no-brainer. I mean, look at that. Now, yeah, there is a slight advantage of having that zoom range between 200 and 800 millimeters, but again, I'm repeating myself, I know, but if you want the best quality as far as like sharpness, the prime 800 is where it's at. It's just, yeah, that's just how it is. So that's just something that I noticed in photos. And again, this is with the 200 to 800, and look at the amount of detail here around the eye, the feathers here. Now this was about 5 meters away, and I zoomed in. The dove was just making eye contact with me, and I mean, you can even see the little details in there. It's just a beautiful photo. F9, 800 millimeters. So yeah, this the 200 to 800 is a wonderful lens. It is sharp, nothing to complain about. But as you see, the prime, cheaper brother or little brother is actually sharper when it comes to image quality. It's just how it is. Also, the another thing that just came to my attention today, I was watching a video by Dwayne, I think it's Dwayne or Dwayne Patton, or yeah, something like that. He has a YouTube channel where he does videos about camera and lenses and things like that, and he was talking about T-stops, and that's another interesting thing. Okay, so let me just take a look here. Okay, yeah, and see, so for example, let's go with Canon here. This is just for example, okay. I don't have they're pretty limited as to how much information they got on what lenses here. But one thing that caught my attention was, for example, T-stops. It's basically, how I understand this is it's kind of like okay, the lens, when we look at the lenses, we look at them as f-stop, for example, 2.8, or in wildlife, for example, the 800 millimeter will be f11, right? Okay, but that is what the aperture of the ranking, of the size of the aperture of the lens. That's not calculating how much light it is actually letting in through the lens and the sensor is actually gathering. That's not what that is. If you want to know how much lighting the sensor is getting through the lens, you have to look at an aspect, or this thing called transmission, or T-stops. So for example, let's look at I have this lens here, the RF 85 millimeter f2 macro. It says f2, but actually, in actuality, what the sensor is gathering with this camera, with the EOS R, is 2.2. Okay, so it's still a pretty good amount of light, nothing to complain about there. But let's look at, and say Tamron, and this came as a little surprise to me, because I was not expecting this. But let's see, where is the Tamron? It's the 150 to 600. So this is actually pretty good. Now we're dealing with the yeah, it's not a mirrorless camera, okay, DSLR. So the 150 to 600, you're looking at f5 to 6.3 at its maximum zoom range. But in actuality, the light that the sensor is actually getting through the lens, it's actually 6.7 t-stop, what they're calling transmission. Now, why is this important? Well, it's important because this affects zoom lenses the most, because when the lens actually expands, when you actually zoom in on something, you're increasing the size of the barrel of the lens, and that is restricting the amount of light that is actually going through the lens until the light has to go through more of a darker area, for example, to get to the sensor. So in that, as it is going through the lens, it is losing some lighting. So instead of you actually getting 6.3, it's more like 6.7. And so this is due to the lens, the construction of the lens. And this is actually not bad. This is pretty good. On prime lenses, this is not much of an issue. Let's see if we can find one here. For example, 1.8, you're getting f2 or t-stop of 2. So, if I am understanding this correctly, it's the lighting that you're losing, the amount of lighting that you're losing. There is some lighting. I'm sorry. There is some lighting that you're losing as the lens expands and contracts, because it is a zoom lens. So when you're at your not at your widest, but at your when you're zoomed in on something, and you have to the lens has to expand, or you do lose some lighting. But anyway, that's just something that came to my attention. And Dwayne Patton on his YouTube channel explains that, goes into depth about this stuff here, which it never occurred to me. And it might be the reason why a lot of the prime lenses, especially in wildlife, a lot of the 600, 400s, 800 millimeter lenses that are prime are sharper than the zoom lenses, because they do have that advantage of actually gathering more light, because they don't have to expand, adding more surface area for light to have to travel through. So that may be the reason why I am seeing, what I am seeing with the F11 800 millimeter versus the 200 to 800 lens. But anyway, I'm going to leave it here, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.